Some choices bypass the mind entirely, before logic wakes up, before language finds its footing. Something deeper in you has already decided, not because you reasoned it through, but because your unconscious recognized something it already knew. Right now, in front of you, there are 6 bridges. They are not ordinary structures. Each one carries a different atmosphere, a different emotional weight, a different silent invitation. Some will feel unsettling. Some may feel strangely familiar. And one of them, without you fully understanding why, will feel like the bridge you would never cross. That reaction is not random. Carl Jung believed that our instinctive responses to symbols reveal what the rational mind deliberately hides from itself. The unconscious does not speak in arguments or explanations. It speaks in images and discomfort, in that quiet but unmistakable pull of avoidance. This is important. Do not ask yourself which bridge looks most dangerous. Do not think about physics or architecture. Instead, ask something deeper. Which of these bridges produces a feeling in your chest? Not fear of heights, not logical risk assessment, but something more personal, more private, the kind of resistance that has your history written inside it. Because that is exactly what this test is designed to read. The bridge you refuse to cross is not simply about a physical threshold. It is about an internal one. What we avoid in symbols reflects what we avoid in ourselves. The structures we will not walk toward are often mirrors of the inner territories we have spent years carefully walking around. Take a moment now. Look at all 6 bridges. Let your eyes move slowly. Notice which one produces a quiet but certain no. Maybe your breath changes slightly. Maybe something tightens. Maybe you feel a pull away from one in particular, not because it looks the most broken, but because it feels the most true. Choose it. Hold it in your mind. And as we move forward, you'll begin to understand not just what you avoided, but why, what that avoidance protects, what it costs you, and what it may be quietly asking you to finally face. Bridge 1. The hanging bridge. Suspended high above an unknown darkness, held together by rope and old wood, swaying with every imagined step. The moonlight behind it offers light, but no reassurance. If this is the bridge you would never cross, your avoidance carries a message that has little to do with the drop below. You do not fear falling. What you fear is being fully exposed mid-crossing, with no structure around you and no one certain catch you on the other side. From a Jungian perspective, the hanging bridge activates what he called the abandonment wound, not simply the fear of being left, but something more specific, the fear of discovering, in a moment of genuine vulnerability, that you are alone in a way you cannot recover from. So you have learned to test the ground before you step, to measure trust before you extend it, to protect yourself in advance from a loss that has not yet arrived. People who avoid this bridge are often among the warmest, most loyal people in any room. You love deeply. You give steadily. You show up. But there's a part of you that remains carefully managed, a part that has learned to read exits before it reads invitations. Jung would say that what we avoid reveals our shadow, and the shadow here is not weakness. It is a belief, formed long before you had words for it, that emotional exposure leads to being left behind. You may have learned early that needing people comes with a cost, that showing how much something matters makes you vulnerable to losing it. So you developed a kind of emotional preemptiveness. You connect, but you hold something back. You love, but you maintain a quiet exit. You stay, but you never fully unpack. The bridge's instability mirrors what you fear most in intimacy, the feeling that the ground could shift, that the person on the other side could turn away, that your weight, your full emotional weight, might be too much for it to hold. The challenge is not crossing every hanging bridge that appears in your life. Some bridges genuinely do not deserve your trust. The challenge is learning to distinguish between real danger and the echo of old fear, between bridges that are genuinely unstable and bridges that simply remind you of the moment you once fell. Your growth is not about becoming fearless. It is about recognizing when you are protecting yourself in the present by replaying the past. Ask yourself, where in your life are you hovering at the entrance of something that might actually hold you? Where have you mistaken the fear of falling for evidence that the bridge is broken? Bridge 2, the stone forest bridge, ancient, covered in moss, arched over dark water in the middle of the forest, so dense the light barely penetrates. It has endured for centuries, And something about that permanence feels less like comfort and more like obligation. If this is the bridge you would never cross, pay attention, because your avoidance is not about the structure at all. It is about what the structure represents. Permanence. Wait, the quiet, unspoken expectation that you will carry what needs carrying and ask nothing in return. People who feel resistance to this bridge often grew up in environments where responsibility arrived before it was appropriate, where you became reliable not because you chose to, but because someone needed you to be, where your steadiness was so natural, so expected, that no one thought to ask how you were managing the weight of it. Jung described this pattern as a premature development of the persona, the mask we wear to function in the world. When a child learns early that being capable earns love, being capable becomes the only self they feel safe presenting. Emotion gets filed away, need gets quietly edited out, and a particular kind of exhaustion sets in, invisible to everyone except the person carrying it. The stone bridge, in all its solidity, reflects what you become for others. Immovable, reliable, always there. What makes you reluctant to cross? It is not fear of it breaking. It is the fear of what it means if you step onto it again. That you will be seen as capable and therefore given more. That your strength will be mistaken, once again, for inexhaustibility. The shadow here is a belief that you must earn your place in any relationship through usefulness. That love which does not come attached to a role you are performing might not stay. That peace is something you are allowed only after everything has been handled. But the stone bridge also carries a truth you may not have fully absorbed. It has endured precisely because it is not trying to hold everything at once. It simply exists, solid but not straining. Your growth does not come from building a lighter bridge. It comes from recognizing that the weight you carry was never entirely yours to begin with. Ask yourself, where have you confused being needed with being valued? Where is your steadiness quietly costing you something you have not admitted yet? Bridge 3, the fractured rope bridge, broken in places, swaying over a gorge that has no visible bottom. Its path forward is uncertain, its stability clearly compromised. It is a kind of bridge that asks for faith it has not earned. If this is the bridge you would never cross, notice the specificity of that refusal, because it is not really the broken planks that stop you. It is what crossing anyway would mean about who you are. For a long time, uncertainty may have been the primary texture of your life. Perhaps chaos, unpredictability, or instability formed your earliest understanding of how the world worked. And somewhere in the process of surviving that, you became extraordinarily good at navigating broken ground, at moving carefully, at bracing for the next fracture before it arrives. Jung would say that the psyche adapts to its environment with remarkable intelligence. If chaos is what you were given, you develop a self built for it, perceptive, alert, resilient, someone who can read a situation in seconds and adjust before most people have even noticed something shifted. But adaptations outlive their usefulness. And here's where the shadow lives. Part of you has quietly organized your identity around surviving difficulty. Without fully realizing it, struggle may have become a condition under which you feel most recognizable yourself. Stability, when it arrives, can feel untrustworthy, not because you want chaos, but because calm has so rarely been where you found your footing. The fractured bridge asks you to cross anyway, trusting a structure that appears unreliable. And your refusal may actually be one of the first healthy boundaries you have ever set. But it is worth examining. Are you refusing because this bridge is genuinely dangerous? Or are you refusing because walking away from difficulty feels like walking away from the only version of yourself you fully trust? Your growth is not about forcing yourself onto broken bridges to prove your courage. It is about honestly answering this question. Do you know who you are when the ground beneath you is actually stable? And if you do not yet know, is it time to find out? Bridge 4, the Gothic City Bridge. Ornate, imposing, built with remarkable craft and deliberate grandeur, arching over still water beneath towers that suggest both beauty and surveillance. It is the bridge that sees you as clearly as you see it. If this is the bridge you would never cross, your resistance carries remarkable self-awareness. Even if you cannot fully articulate it yet, you are someone who reads environments, people, and situations with considerable depth. Before you enter a room, you have already assessed it. Before you trust someone, you have already studied them. You are not cold. You are careful. And there is an important distinction between the two that most people in your life may never fully appreciate. The Gothic bridge unsettles you because it offers no concealment. Its grandeur means you will be seen crossing it, observed, interpreted, placed in a narrative you did not write, and control over your own narrative, how you are understood, how much access others have to your interior life, is something you have worked very deliberately to maintain. Jung called this the fortification of the inner sanctum. When the inner world is sufficiently rich, sufficiently private, sufficiently yours, any structure that threatens to expose it triggers proportional resistance. The shadow here is subtle but significant. The walls you build around your inner life began as protection. Perhaps you learned early that showing too much led to being misunderstood or used or dismissed. So you became selectively visible, strategic in your disclosure, always the one doing the reading, rarely the one being read. But protection, held long enough, begins to function as isolation, not the solitude you choose, but the loneliness of never quite being fully known, of holding a version of yourself in reserve that no one has ever actually seen. The Gothic bridge is not asking you to perform yourself publicly. It is asking something quieter. Whether there's anyone, even one person, in front of whom you have allowed the full architecture of who you are to be seen. Ask yourself, who actually knows you, not the version you present, not the face behind which you manage everything carefully, but the one behind that. Bridge 5, the floating wooden bridge, low to the water, modest in appearance. The kind of bridge that shifts with whatever is beneath it, adapting to the current rather than opposing it. It looks gentle, but there is something unsettling in a structure that has no fixed position. If this is the bridge you would never cross, your instinct is pointing towards something you may have spent years carefully not naming. You have become remarkably skilled at adaptation, at reading what a situation needs and quietly becoming that, at adjusting to other people's emotional climates so naturally that the adjustment itself has become invisible even to you. You move through relationships and environments with a fluid ease that others often describe as easygoing, laid back, or low maintenance. But the floating bridge reveals the cost of that fluency. When you're always the one who adapts, when your shape is always determined by the container you are poured into, the question of your own shape becomes genuinely difficult to answer. Not because you lack depth, but because you have practiced being accommodating for so long that your own preferences, desires, and needs have quietly learned to wait. And waiting has become indistinguishable from not existing. Jung described this pattern in relation to what he called the dissolution of self within relationship. It is not the loss of intelligence or feeling. It is the gradual fading of a personal interior. The sense that your emotional life is always organized around what someone else is feeling, needing, or experiencing, while your own interior quietly runs on low. The floating bridge unsettles you because it has no fixed ground. It moves with everything around it. And something in you recognizes that feeling in a way that is not entirely comfortable. The shadow is not your flexibility. Your flexibility is genuine, and it is a gift. The shadow is the belief that your needs, stated clearly and without apology, will cost you connection you have worked so quietly to maintain. Your voice does not need to be loud, but it does need to exist. Ask yourself, when did you last want something and simply say so, without first calculating whether it was appropriate, convenient, or too much? Bridge 6, the modern suspension bridge. Sleek, engineered, glowing faintly in the dark with a precision that suggests it was built to be trusted. And yet something about its careful construction, its dependence on invisible tension, its assumption that everything is correctly calibrated, makes you unwilling to step onto it. If this is your bridge, your resistance is not about engineering. It is about what certainty has come to mean to you. You are a person who thinks carefully before moving, who gathers information, considers angles, waits for conditions to clarify before committing. Others may interpret this as caution. But from inside, it often feels more urgent than that, almost like certainty is the last piece of a permission structure you are waiting for before you allow yourself to begin. Jung would recognize this pattern as connected to what he called a provisional life, the life held in suspension until conditions become correct, until you know enough, have prepared enough, have eliminated enough uncertainty to be sure that moving forward will not end in failure. The suspension bridge is built on tension, on carefully balanced opposing forces held taut. Its stability depends on things you cannot see. And that is precisely the problem, because you have learned, somewhere along the way, that the things you cannot see are where the danger lives. The shadow here is not a lack of courage. You have moved through considerable difficulty in your life. The shadow is the equation your unconscious has quietly accepted. That worthiness of forward motion must be proven in advance, that you are not yet allowed to step on the bridge until you are certain the bridge will hold. But certainty rarely arrives before the first step. It arrives because of it. Your growth does not come from eliminating the need for clarity. It comes from recognizing that the clarity you are waiting for is not a prerequisite for movement. It is a result of it. Ask yourself, what are you waiting to know before you allow yourself to begin? And what if you already know enough? You chose one bridge, one structure you would not cross, and it was never really about the bridge. Each refusal carried a fingerprint of your interior world. The hanging bridge speaks of the fear of exposure in a moment of genuine need. The stone bridge reflects the exhaustion of self built entirely around reliability. The fractured bridge holds a complicated relationship between survival and identity. The Gothic bridge maps the distance between the self you show and the self you protect. The floating bridge reveals what happens when flexibility gradually erases the one it was meant to serve. And the modern bridge holds a belief that certainty must precede permission. None of these are character flaws. They are adaptations. Intelligent, often effective, deeply human strategies built by a psyche that was doing its best with what was given. Jung believed that psychological growth is not the elimination of our shadows. It is a gradual, honest recognition of them. When the unconscious is made conscious, it loses its power to drive us from behind. The bridge we would never cross becomes, over time, something we can at least stand at the entrance of, not to force ourselves across it, but to ask, with genuine curiosity, what has been holding. The bridge you avoid is not your weakness. It is a map, and maps, by their nature, are not meant to be feared. They are meant to be read. Take a moment to sit with what's surfaced. Where in your current life does the psychology of your bridge show up? In a relationship you are managing from a careful distance. In a project you are endlessly preparing for, but not beginning. In a conversation you have rewritten 100 times but never sent. These are the bridges of your daily life. And the awareness you carry from this moment forward is already, in some quiet way, a first step. If this reflection resonated with you, share your bridge in the comments, not just a number. Tell us what part of the description felt like it knew something about you that you had not quite said aloud before. Because sometimes the most useful mirror is not the one we hold up to ourselves. It is the one we find in recognizing ourselves in someone else's honest reflection. Your avoidance was never weakness. It was information. And now, at least a little more of it is yours to understand.